Today we're going to recap all the quarterfinal action at the World Junior Hockey Championships. We're also going to preview the semifinals, which comes up tomorrow. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. On this channel, we review and analyze all 31 NHL teams as well as international tournaments with an unbiased opinion. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider hitting that subscribe button now so you don't miss anything. Alright, so let's take a look at the quarterfinal action that went down yesterday at the World Junior Championships. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, yesterday was quarterfinal Tuesday with all 4 quarterfinal matchups going yesterday. So let's take a look at the games and we'll see who's going on to the semifinals. Alright, first up we had Team Finland versus Team Czech Republic. As I mentioned in the preview video, I fully expected this game to be very close and very tightly played. And it was exactly just that. The Czech Republic pulled out a victory, but it ended up going to a shootout. So they ended up winning by a score of 4-3. Some people kind of think of this as a bit of an upset. Personally, based on how each team played through the preliminary round, I don't really look at it as much of an upset. I look at them as very equal teams. They have different strengths. But the Czech goaltender making 48 saves in this game was the biggest reason they were able to hang around and have a chance to pull out this win. I mean, the Czech team does have some stars, starting with Reichel, who's the son of Robert Reichel, former NHL player. He's quite a dynamic player in his own right. But the goaltender is really what held them in. The other Czech forward that really stood out for me was Zadina. He played a fantastic game. Now, as I mentioned in the preview, goaltending was their question mark, but their goalie really came through with an outstanding performance and really helped propel them on to the next round. Next up, we had Team Canada taking on Team Switzerland. As you probably heard me mention, or you might have seen the actual interview itself, the Team Switzerland coach was interviewed before the game, actually the day before, asking what he thought his team's chances were against Team Canada. And he said he didn't think they had much of a chance at all, and that Team Canada was better than them in every aspect of the game. Well, coach, you were right. The Swiss got slaughtered by a score of 8-2. Wasn't even really all that close. The Swiss only mustered 15 shots on net. They did end up scoring 2 goals, which was quite miraculous, really, if you think about the opportunities that they had. But the couple of good chances they did get, they buried them. One of them was shorthanded at that, which was quite surprising. But Team Canada prevailed with a lopsided win. Yet again, starting for Team Canada, Brett Howden had 4 points, a goal and 3 assists. Drake Batherson, Senators prospect, scored 2 goals, and his stick actually ended up with a 3rd goal for a natural, we'll call it a hat stick. His stick actually ended up being used by Jordan Kyrou on the following goal. So not only was it a hat trick for his stick, but it was actually a natural one at that. What happened is Batherson had scored the previous 2 goals. Canada was in the Switzerland end on an offensive opportunity. Kyrou's stick breaks. He goes to the bench to grab one. The training staff wasn't quick enough to get him one of his own sticks, so Batherson gave him his. He skated right back down towards the net and put the puck in the net. So there you go. So Drake Batherson's stick had a natural hat stick, we'll call it. That's what they're calling it on TSN, and I thought it sounded kind of neat, so we'll go with that for now, for lack of a better option here. But Team Canada certainly dominated this game. They move on to the semifinals to play the previous winner we just talked about, the Czech Republic. So that should be an interesting game. We'll do a quick preview on that here in just a moment once we get through all the recap. Next up was the 3rd game of the day, Team Sweden taking on Team Slovakia. Now, as I mentioned in the preview, I fully suspected Team Sweden to win, but I thought Slovakia would at least put up a good fight, and that's exactly what happened. Team Sweden pulled out a 3-2 victory. This game was a little bit closer than I expected. I thought Sweden might be able to pull off a 2 or 3 goal differential here and win by a wider spread, but Slovakia put up a great fight. They got pretty decent goaltending, and they overall played a pretty solid game. Even though they lost in the quarterfinals, I think Team Slovakia has a lot to be proud of. They put up some great games in this tournament. I mean, they defeated Team USA, which was quite an upset. And they gave some other good teams a really good run. So I think they should be proud of their efforts, and I certainly look forward to seeing what they can accomplish next year. But Team Sweden is just too strong. As I mentioned before, since day one, I fully suspect that Team Sweden should be a contender to win the gold medal this year. They just have too much firepower and too much defense. They're an all-around great team, which is quite often what you see out of the Swedes. They usually have a very well-balanced attack. So Team Sweden prevails. They'll go on to play the winner of Team USA and Team Russia, which we'll recap here next. All right, the last game of the day, the last quarterfinal was Team USA versus Team Russia. Now, as I mentioned in the preview, for me, I thought this would be the marquee matchup of the day, probably provide the most entertainment and probably the closest game. Now, you could probably argue that the Finns and the Czechs might have put on the best overall entertaining game, in my opinion. However, this game was pretty close as well, and it wasn't really settled until late in the game. The U.S. pulled off a 4-2 victory, but for the most part, it was really close. The United States got a couple of big goals from Kiefer Bellows, one of them on the power play early in the game. But the U.S. had a really difficult time putting away Team Russia. There was points in the middle frame and even in the early third where they had a lot of power play time, and they just couldn't capitalize to put this game out of reach for the Russians. At one point, the Russians ended up receiving a 5-minute major for a hit to the head on U.S. player Max Jones. Jones fortunately looked to be okay and stayed in the game, but the 5-minute major penalty still applied, and they couldn't capitalize. Right after that, within a couple of minutes, they had another 2-minute power play, couldn't capitalize. So they kept letting the Russians hang around and hang around and hang around, and finally in the third period, the Russians tied this game up and gave them a good scare, which is exactly what I was thinking would happen. As I was watching this game, I kept thinking those chances that they did not get are going to come back to bite them, and it almost happened. Then late in the, I think it was around 7 minutes in the third period to go, the U.S. was coming in. It was almost like a set play. The defenseman, I think it was Sandberg, coming in across the center line, dumped the puck in hard off the boards, and it got a nice bounce. Came right out Kiefer Bellows with a slap shot, roofed to top shelf right over the Russian goal. It was a beautiful shot, beautiful goal, and that's kind of what put it away. The U.S. later added an empty netter right at the buzzer for a 4-2 victory. Now, a couple of things that surprised me about Team Russia is I've only got to see bits and pieces of their games throughout this tournament. This was the first game where I see the whole 60 minutes. And as TSN analyst Ray Ferraro mentioned on a couple occasions, the Russian power play was absolutely atrocious and lacked a lot of creativity. Like, they didn't have anything at all. Like, it was just get the puck back to the point, throw it through, and just hope there's a bounce. Or like, there's no creativity, which is extremely surprising, considering a lot of the creativity that we've seen in hockey. A lot of innovation can be credited to past Russian coaches and players that have really helped innovate this game. But this Russian team just, I don't know, like, they have some skill, but it's just not very creative and a little bit boring to watch. So now Team USA will go on to Team Sweden, and next we'll do a quick preview here for the semifinals, which take place on Thursday, January the 4th. All right, so let's take a quick preview here of the semifinals, which are going to be played tomorrow, January the 4th, on Thursday. So we're also going to have two matchups. We have Team Canada against Team Czech Republic. Now, in this game, I fully suspect Team Czech Republic to give them a good run. And as their coach was interviewed yesterday, once the matchups were determined, and asked what he thought his chances were against Team Canada, and his quote was that he felt all the pressure was now on Canada. That the Czechs had a lot of pressure on them to beat Team Finland, but now that they've accomplished that and moved to the semifinals, that the pressure shifts to Team Canada. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and agree with him. I think he's right. I don't think the Czechs have anything to lose at this point. I mean, obviously, they've made it quite far, probably as further than they may have already expected to go. So this rate for them, the sky's the limit. And if they lose to a powerhouse like Team Canada, I don't think they have anything to be ashamed of. Team Canada always wants to win gold, and I think they have a strong chance to do so this year. But they need to be on their toes against this Czech Republic team. They've won some big games. Canada has strong defense and great goaltending, and that needs to come through in tomorrow's games. I mean, that's vitally important. If they can get the normal defense and goaltending that they've been getting all along, I think they'll be just fine. They've obviously got a scoring by committee approach up front. They've got a lot of guys that can put the puck in the net, and I think that Team Canada will prevail in this game and go on to play for gold, but they need to be careful here with Team Czech Republic. They can't be giving them too many chances because this team is pretty solid. Now, the other semifinal is going to feature Team Sweden against Team USA. Now, I fully expect this game to be a very intense, close game as well. I think this game might be a little bit closer than the other matchup here featuring Canada and the Czech Republic. I think this team of Sweden is going to be very tough to beat for the U.S. If you look at the U.S.'s track record here in this tournament, the fact of how close they were, the fact they lost against Slovakia, how close it was against the Russians, etc. I think they need the U.S. has to have their best game of the tournament. Otherwise, they're going to not stand a good chance. Sweden is not going to be giving them the opportunities that some of these other teams have. They're just too sound all-around game here. So the U.S. is going to have to come forth, and I think that it is possible the U.S. could win. if I'm going to have to pick a winner, I think Team Sweden is just a little too strong that I think the U.S. isn't going to be able to make it any further here. So I think we're going to see a Canada-Sweden gold medal final. That's my prediction, but at the same time, if there is one game that I'm wrong about, I would not be shocked if the U.S. pulls this off, and I certainly would not be upset by a Canada-U.S. gold medal game. That would be highly entertaining and give the Canadians a chance at revenge here since they've lost 3 consecutive games in this tournament to the U.S. team. I think Canada would love a shot at redemption here, and by the same time, if they win gold, I don't think they're going to care too much on who they beat. But I think the U.S. is in tough against Sweden. Like I said, they are a very solid all-around team. The U.S. has some pretty solid players as well, and they're going to have to come forth with their best effort if they want to have a chance to repeat as gold medalists. So either way, if we have Team Canada against Team Sweden or Team USA, I think it's going to be a solid gold medal final and highly entertaining. Don't forget to leave some comments to let me know who you think is going to win the semifinals in this tournament. Also, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to consider subscribing so you can keep watching more Top Shelf Hockey.